Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you, and today we're going to talk about stacking oral steroids. But before we get into that, I want to reiterate that I am not a doctor, and anything that I say in these videos is for your entertainment purposes only. I'm not advising nor condoning you to use any of the products discussed here, and what you do with this information is completely and utterly up to you. So let's talk about stacking oral steroids. Now, when I talk about stacking oral steroids, I'm not talking about just running them in the same cycle. I'm talking about running them at the same time in the same cycle. So, let's say you're running a 12-week cycle, test, Anavar, and Winstrol, and you want to run Anavar and Winstrol at the same time the first 6 weeks. Okay, can you do this? Yes. Should you do this? I'm not a particular fan of it. I'm not saying that you can't. Well, you can do whatever you want. So asking me can you is not a good question. Should you? Should you? Well, you can, yes. I hate to say you should. I don't really think that you should. Here's a few reasons why I don't think you should. One, to do this effectively and to keep the toxicity level from just overwhelming you, you're going to have to cut each dose in half. So a general dose of Winstrol, common dose is 40 to 50 milligrams, Anavar 50 to 60 milligrams. Let's say you go top end, so let's say you cut Anavar to 30, Winstrol to 25. You're just running half the normal dose as it is. Okay, so in my eyes, it would be better to just run Winstrol at 50 milligrams, get the most out of it, or just run Anavar at 60 milligrams and get the most out of it, instead of cutting both in half and hoping to get some kind of synergy there with half the dose of each. To me, I would rather get the most out of one, okay, than stacking two. Now, there are arguments like Anadrol and D-ball stacked that has a supremely strong synergy, and I get that, and that's fine. It's not like by cutting the doses in half, you're going to wreck yourself or ruin yourself. All right, you're mitigating the side effects by doing that. But if you try to run, especially Anadrol and D-ball, it's just a recipe for disaster by running them both at their top end doses or normal doses. Toxicity alone will just wreck your liver, your kidneys, your cholesterol, things of that nature. So you really want to avoid that. All right, and like I said, do you really feel and believe that you're getting more out of it by running half doses than just picking one and running the full dose? That's an argument, and some people could maybe say that in their experience they had such a great synergistic effect. And hey, I believe it. I've seen it. I've done it a lot. Here's one of the ways that I think it's a better way. Let's say that you take Winstrol and Anadrol, which are complete opposites. So you've got one bulking and one cutting, but let's say you're trying to pull a recomp here, or you're trying to keep your bulking as clean as possible. Then I'm looking at that and saying, okay, that makes some nice sense. That makes more sense to me. If you're just bulking, why take half of D-ball and half of Anadrol when you could just take one and just go full all out? But if you're trying to, kind of commingle here, and get the most out of the most out of each way, that makes a lot more sense to me. Okay, Winstrol, Anadrol, Winstrol, D-ball, Anavar with any of those, etc. Now that seems to me, and being experienced with it, works extremely well, and it makes more sense. But I get people that ask me, can I do this, can I do that? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Literally, you can do whatever you want. You could run 5 million grams of steroids. Doesn't make it right. Should you? That's dependent upon your goals, your experience, what your body's general reaction to certain compounds are. Some people, even though they're cutting the doses in half, just can't handle it for whatever reason. I don't even know why. They don't know why. It's just their makeup of their body and their reactions. You can only judge that by trying through trial and error. What I would always tell people is this: always start lower. Why? Because you can always increase. But once you start too high, it's too late. It's too late. That's why when I see these people that propose these cycles that are just preposterous to start with on the dosing, why start that high when you can slowly work your way up? So you could cut those doses in more than in half just to see how your body responds to it. That's up to you. But you just have to be careful. Okay, just because you run Winstrol with D-ball, for example, you're still got to worry about estrogenic side effects with D-ball. I don't care if Winstrol has some anti-estrogen properties. It's not an AI. I don't care if you're running D-ball at a lower dose. The fact remains that those side effects are still there. So you've got to also remember that you've got to factor in different side effects with different compounds, running them together. The toxicity is always going to be there with an oral steroid. It's a methylated oral steroid. So aside from Proviron, you're going to run into that issue. Okay? So you don't want to overdo it on doses, period. Whether you're running it by itself, solo, or stacking it. It's a bad look either way. Okay? And you also have to remember, if you're running D-ball with Winstrol, well, you really shouldn't go over 4 weeks with D-ball, and you can take Winstrol up to 6 weeks. So that doesn't mean to run D-ball 6 weeks. It means that you either stop it at 4 and keep Winstrol growing through 6, or you stop the Winstrol at 4 with it. It doesn't mean that you take the one that you're supposed to run shorter and then accelerate it to longer. That's not how that should be done. You can do it, and I know some people that run D-ball that long, but you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. You can. Same with Anadrol. Same with Superdrol. You don't want to run those too long, but you can. I just don't feel it to be wise, and I don't think your body's going to feel that great about it either, and it could really negatively affect your cycle. So these are things to keep in mind. Just remember, when you're stacking oral steroids, you absolutely need to cut the doses in half, or you're going to cause yourself problems, unnecessary problems. And stacking them is just generally not necessary. There's a few instances where I can see it, like I pointed out, with a bulker and a cutter. But to me, the obvious thing would be to pick one, get the most out of it, instead of trying to get some kind of magical synergistic effect with 2 at a lower dose. I mean, really, it's arguable, and people can do it, but I'd rather just take the one and get the most out of it. So that being said, www.icearms.com/forums. I'm also on the Evolutionary Forum as well as the Elite Fitness Forum. Dylan at icearms.com is where you can get me with all questions and comments, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That being said, stay tuned for plenty more to come. Dylan Gemelli, signing off.